da pa, ba ba da da de 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 de, ba da boom ba ba do do. So you actually got to hear me singing and playing along with my daddy, which is the thing I actually did once. A thing I did once. We met up in Newport, Tennessee at a park. I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He lived in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. And he worked at Appalachian State. Uh-oh. He worked at Appalachian State, and he said, listen, let's pick out a place that's in between you and I, and we'll just drive together and meet up in the middle. So I just threw my guitar in the car and drove out there. We met at a Holiday Inn. I'm like, let's find a park around here. We can sit around and sing, do some tunes. So we asked the people at the hotel, hey, is there like a park around here? And with some benches we could sit around. So we went down to this park in Newport, Tennessee, which is a port town famous for the snail darter fish that prevented them from putting up a dam. That's a whole story. The snail darter. There's a little fish that would have been wiped out, a rare little fish, if they had put this dam up. And we found this park, and in the park there was a caboose that said Southern on it, for the Southern Railway. And Bert and I sat and sang songs. We knew so many of the same songs. He played guitar and I played harmonica, and then we traded places. And he said, if we did a little practicing, we could play some lousy bars around here and make a little bit of money. And that was one of the nicest things anybody ever said to me. And I was picking these, you know, blues progressions and bluegrass progressions, and he's like, that is very nice. So I got approval from my daddy for one moment. And I got all that on tape. I got all that filmed. But then a precious young man in Canada was in custody of my video camera, and the video camera went away. And so did that tape of me and my daddy. So never be able to see that. But sometimes the best things, the greatest things are remembered. And we drove through Newport, Tennessee. He and I said, now look at this. Here is a town that was started by the river and the railroad. Look at this. And both of us were talking about. He said, well, you're interested in history. You know, he said, my son Richard made up a song about the Great Depression and blah 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 blah, talking about history, and he and I like to talk about history. So that was another thing we have in common, is telling detailed stories about interesting historical things. Now, when it comes around to Jesus of Nazareth and what the Constantine and the nasty kings of Europe did to the fun little home gatherings where people stayed happy and close to one another and didn't allow one another to get in too much trouble because they were open-hearted all the time. You know, I got some history telling to do too, because I never got the happy history, you know, kind of Mr. Rogers style. I never got the happy history about supernatural powers, miracle signs and wonders, healing people and raising them from the dead, and also the courageous history of being honest and real about your testimony and the crap that you did that hurt people. And those two things were both a major part of the early disciple life, and it was fun. It was action-packed, interesting, fascinating, not boring at all. So anyhow, blah, 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 blah. I'm a historian, I'm a guitar picker, I'm a singer, and I am so glad that I met my birth daddy in the year of my 40th birthday, 1997. And I'm glad that you're glad. And I want to remind you to check out information called Uh, what's it called? Where's that book? It's a book about spoken blessings. There it is. There it is. Spoken blessings. No? Yeah? Where is it? Cut to library. The 2-Minute Miracle. That's what it's called. The 2-Minute Miracle. This is such a cool book. It's all about what happens when the person that bugs you the most, when you say, may they have a really nice time today, may their favorite food be in good supply, may their worst enemies become their best business partners, and may they be successful and delighted today, right now. Spoken blessings can actually bust off bad spirits from people who are bugging you. And it's what you might call an universal spiritual principle that is sometimes talked about, but actually rarely. And I took a walk on the beach and I started speaking blessings over that guy that's out there who's my daddy. And I started saying, may his favorite food be in good supply. May he never have a flat tire on the interstate in the pouring rain. If he's got other children, may they all be wise and successful. And if his bones are in the grave, may they be happy bones. And may his worst enemies become his best business partners and teammates. And I was speaking that stuff, and I was walking along the sand in St. Pete Beach, and all of a sudden I got this feeling, I'm going to meet this guy. And my mommy didn't know who it was. It was one of 3 people. She didn't know who it was. She couldn't even remember their names. It was 40 years ago. And I got in touch with my mom, and I said, Mom, I feel like we're going to meet this guy. She said, who? I said, well, like my birth dad. She's like, oh, I wish I had told you that story when you were 6 and when you were 13. She said, I felt like I should have been doing research on that stuff a long time ago and trying to make a connection for you. And then, literally 3 days later, I'm talking to the guy who is my father on the phone. Whack out, man. I mean, sheesh. And then, not so much longer later, I am tossed into relationship, partly against my will, with Anna, and her son Ryan had never been brought to his father, ever. He was surrounded by people that know both Anna and his father. He was never introduced to his father. I'm like, what the heck? I'm in New Jersey. We're in New Jersey. Pittsburgh's is not even a half a day drive away. It's a fun drive. Let's go now. We're going to go meet Ryan's daddy. So I ended up getting to be a bridge from a son to a daddy, just like I got from Sweet One. And anyhow, blah, 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 blah. Peace out.